Hello there folks, this is Ferengi on board again, this time with a video on the topic of space. Welcome to my YouTube channel, a channel where I present different topics on introspection, on dream interpretation, spirituality, and whatever other questions people might come up with but may find difficulty in also coming up with an answer. There will always be people who will ask questions, and there will always be people who can actually answer them. Now, the answers will always be different because each person came here to experience their own truth. So whatever I will share will belong in a way to my own perceptions, my own ways of interpreting things, and well, to at least a minimum giving them my own personal meaning, because in order to accept something, one also has to give them at least a slight meaning. Now, the point of today's video is that of space travel and why we may actually not be able to support it. Now, we all know in sci-fis that, we've been seeing those glamorous civilizations that travel far and wide, and, the topic of aliens will always be something of great interest. And my question was, and still is, and this video is again one related more towards introspection rather than just a plain providence of answers. The simple point is this: in order to exist, we exist on a planet, and the reason why we exist on this planet is because life chose so, and life created the necessary code for us to exist in a certain physical body for a certain experience throughout a period of time. This is how life works. It gives you the ability to incarnate and experience life, and well, it only lasts for a certain period of time. Why so, and why only this way? Well, this is what life chose, and there is no power in stopping this, but the main focus of one's life should be on how to make the most out of that experience, because each and every life experience is very short in a way. As we have developed on this planet, we have existed on this planet, and we will exist on this planet thanks to numerous causes and numerous effects, and one of those is the planet's electromagnetic field. Now, this one spans for multiple dimensions and over multiple dimensions, and it nurtures us, and it actually acts as a battery that helps us recharge. Now, the point is, once we would go in space, there is quite a problem in a way that I thought of recently, and that would be, hey, wait a minute, if we go into space and we get away from all of these electromagnetic fields, then the question is, that would definitely impact our bodies, but how? Like, we are, as bodies, we have an electromagnetic field, which again spans over several dimensions, and that electromagnetic field is also part, if not as a whole, it is our auric field, and it overlaps with that of other people, and that's how we actually get emotional understanding. Okay, you understand other people's feelings based on your simple auric overlapping. Okay, because they span for like 3 or 4 meters, probably even more depending on traumas and other things, and through this, the point is, they simply overlap. So it's easy to understand other people around you. That is why, for example, school can be a bad point for children, because all those children are more or less traumatized by their families, and once they go to school, they live in a tight, packed up classroom environment where their auras overlap. Now, the point is, they subconsciously exchange energy, so anyone who is feeling better will actually realign themselves to the energy that's more dominant, and that which usually the case is the lower ones, and that is why so many children don't feel good at school. It also acts in amplifying some of their misunderstandings, some of their traumas. It doesn't feed their curiosity, but the good thing is, thanks to the coronavirus and to a great shift in the planetary consciousness, schools are kind of becoming more and more obsolete, and well, it's still gonna take a long time until people will finally realize that the schooling system requires a great reboot. Now, space travel is something that's also kind of awkward to most people, because many people are still simple-minded. one thing that sci-fi has plagued directly and indirectly human minds with is a funny concept that I've noted throughout time, and that is the aspect of 2D. Now, I never understood why in movies and video games and most environments that depict sci-fi, space has to be 2D. Yeah, of course, I know you can see them in a kind of a 3D, and I'm not talking about 2D because the movie basically is a 2D representation. But the point is, it is 2D because everything that happens in sci-fi battles and the such, it always happens from the left to the right or from the right to the left. There's rarely situations in which, you know, when ships warp, they always warp to the left or to the right. There's almost never a situation in which you see ships going upwards and downwards, because space is in all directions. It doesn't have to be leftwards and rightwards, you know, or backwards and frontwards. Okay, space can be in all directions, but again, everything is still kind of entrapped in this 2D mentality, and, you know, what I call the book mentality, because people learn that, you know, with astronomy planets whirl around the sun, but they kind of seem to still have stuck in their minds the aspect of, you know, the planets seeming to be like in a kind of a 2D environment in which, you know, there is the star and all the planets whirl around that star, but, you know, they have the same not necessarily the same orbit, but their orbit are like in the same plane, right? It's not that planets can have different orbits, like different planes of orbit, let's say. Some can whirl around the star, let's say, upwards, downwards, some leftwards, rightwards, you know, like the angles can be different, okay? Like if you take a point and you draw a circle around it that has, you know, that point as a center, basically that's a circle. That's one of the possible circles that exist in the sphere, right? Now the sphere is basically the total number of circles that you can draw with the same dimension, right? So if you have that sphere, basically the sphere would be, let's say, the gravitational point, okay, the gravitational aspect, okay, of an object circling the star, and the point in the middle would be the star, right? So a planet can actually whirl in any possible way along that sphere, okay? So the point is, for example, if we want to go from Earth to Mars, most people will simply think in that 2D book mentality, like the distance from the Earth to Sun is this, the distance from the Mars to Earth is this, and they will simply say, well, the distance from the Earth to Mars is simply this difference, which is never or very rarely the case. It's like 5% of the cases it might be that case. Now why? Well, because the universe is a 3D environment, not a 2D environment like the one you see in a book, okay? As the planets spin, they don't keep their same let's say position compared to the other planets. So at many points, for example, the sun, well, lies in the middle, yes, but the Earth can be on a side of the sun, and the Mars planet, for example, can be on the opposite side of the sun as they spin. So in that case, your distance from the Earth to Mars will actually be the longest. It can be there can be situations in which Mars is close to Earth because they are both, let's say, somewhat closest possible. So when you set out direction towards Mars, it's gonna take a while because, you know, we don't have the technology to necessarily travel very fast. So as it takes a while, you have to take into account that the planet also spins, and as you go there, you actually have to tend to go towards the position where the planet will be when you know, finish the journey, okay? Some say that it may take 5 months or 6 months to travel with you know, like crew equipped ship. I don't know exactly how much, but it will definitely take a while, okay? So you have to take into account that the planets actually spin, so it can actually take longer or shorter depending on where the Earth and where Mars are located. Now as you move away from the Earth, okay, you also move away from the electromagnetic field, which is our battery. Now the question that comes, once you move out of that range, okay, there is, let's say, the electromagnetic field of the sun, but I don't know how much that spans. So the point is, once we no longer have that kind of battery, our electromagnetic field will start to probably manifest strangely. Would that be a situation in which our lives simply start, like we age much faster in a way? There can be such things, okay? And now, just because every astral object has its own electromagnetic field, more or less, the point is, just because it has one, it doesn't mean that it actually will support us the same way Earth will support us, because we were born on Earth and basically our bodies adapted to the electromagnetic field of the Earth. If you move into an electromagnetic field that is not nurturing of your body, then you will create a lot of diseases. And that will also be the situation for machines, because machines also have an electromagnetic field that they function in. Okay? Without an electromagnetic field, the neural discharges, okay, that we have, right? Every action that we make, right, requires neurons, and those neurons simply send an electric pulse from one to the other. But for that electric pulse to exist, right, it needs an electromagnetic field. So if your electromagnetic field is nullified, then most likely the electric impulse from one neuron cannot propagate to the other one, because it doesn't have the necessary medium in which it can actually propagate from one to the other, right? I'm not that good at physics, but at least this tiny bit I know. So the point is very simple. You will literally die in spasms if you no longer have that electromagnetic field, right? Because if your neural signs cannot go from one to another, basically you cannot perform anything. And most likely even muscles may not perform much, so most likely you won't even be able to breathe. So it's gonna be a quick loss of consciousness most likely, and then, well, the body will simply fade in the physical laws that and only it knows. So the question would be, when you get to a different planet, its electromagnetic field will definitely influence you in a certain way. Now, again, just because it has an electromagnetic field around it, it doesn't mean that it will necessarily nurture your body. So, up till you reach Mars, the point is you will have a very long time span in which you might not be around any other things. Again, the question is, can we actually not make electromagnetic fields for our vessels? The point is, the electromagnetic fields of the planet are, a big, large-scale ones, and they're also like natural ones. If we try to replicate those, we will need a great deal of technology to do that. And the point is, we also need to replicate them the way they are, because if we don't do that, it's like going on another planet that has an electromagnetic field that simply does not support us. So I'm kind of having these questions because I simply like asking them and trying to figure out different questions for them. So feel free to present in your comments what you think about this, what your idea about this would be, and I'm happy to create other videos on this and continue on such topics. Usually some of my videos are like different questions that I come up with, and I also provide some answers, and I prefer being like the general, initial old school sci-fi, being a bit of an eye-opener and providing some possibilities, while leaving people to understand things on their own and come up with their own ideas and interpretations, because this is a way that I actually prefer feeding people's curiosity, because that's technically what I'm interested in doing. Allowing people to understand that their curiosity is a great thing, and they can actually use their curiosity to understand the world better and remove some of their limitations that they have accepted through programming. If you like the type of content that I'm creating, feel free to like and subscribe and share it with your friends and other people, so that we can raise the awareness of humanity together. Until next time, you are loved and appreciated. Ferenc Board signing out.